But I have a question that I would like to ask you first. Can anybody tell me what they think is similar between a house painter and a portrait painter? Paint. Paint, okay. Yeah. Anybody? Who's ever hired a house painter? What's the thing you want them to do? You want them to do prep work, right? You don't want them to go in and paint over your plaster and have it fall apart. Well, I have my own little list of preparing before a portrait. And some of you who've been artists for a long time, you're going to know this, you don't even think about it. But there are a lot of things that you have to do before you put brush to canvas or pencil to paper. And Phil was getting this firsthand. Last week he came by and we were kind of talking about poses and what to do. And he said, I had no idea that you have to do this and this and this before you just sit down and go for it. So one of the things is lighting. And would you turn off the lights, please, John? Try that. Is that okay?
Good. Yep.
Okay. So setting up the lighting is storytelling. And here's, I just have a couple of examples here. This is about hands. It's not about face. Maybe you don't even show the hands. Maybe in a child, you know, kids are always in all my years as an illustrator, it's I love the storytelling part of things. And so when I'm posing Phil, can you do the sit on the back of the chair, please? Now, this is something that some of you who know Phil know that he sits like this all the time, to the horror of some people that we know, because we're always thinking he's going to fall backwards. And initially when I had him in, I thought, that's what I've got to do, because that's Phil. He's always sitting like that, he's always putting his hands, da-da-da-da. But because it's a short demo, I didn't want to tackle that. So, and he can actually sit like that for a very long time. But that's a story. So in your prep work, you know, you're not the house painter, but take some time and play with what's happening. And then, after you get some ideas, so we have lighting, we have staging. Is your model going to be confident ballet dancer? Is your model going to be, are you going to do that too? Is your model going to be, you know, the debutante? Is your model going to be a little coy? Change your body, change, you know, and have fun with that. And color harmony. One thing that Laura and I are talking about in the portrait workshop that we're going to do in July is getting nice backdrops behind people, because you know when you paint a room, they say paint a room that you would like to wear the colors because you look better in the room. Well, I didn't paint the wall for you, Phil. We don't have a backdrop, but that's something to consider. So you're making your portrait really, you know, say something. Design and composition. Again, after the years of illustrating, I would never go straight to a finished product. Sketches, 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 sketches. So once you have some of these things outlined, you know you want the person to sit like this, you know you want the light coming from here, then, and Joel, you've done a million of these too in your illustration career, do you want just a head? And this is simple, this is just thumbnail stuff. Do you want the head way over here, the long table? Do this, and you will so save yourself a lot of grief. A lot of times in John's class, the model will come in, and I'm, indecisive, and the model sits up there, and I'll think, oh, I'll start the head, and then I'll think, the hands are really good. Why did I not leave enough room for the hands? And then the hands, of course, are off the page. So when you're in control, you're doing it, think a little bit about that. Another prep work is tubing paints, oil painters. We like to tube a lot of our paints, getting your canvas. I mean, that's pretty obvious. The one thing that's dear to my heart, part of the Rebecca prep list, is hone your drawing skills. We're realistic artists here, and we try to recreate light in a three-dimensional world on 2 dimensions. And the more you know about how light falls over the form, the easier it's going to be, and the better your your paint job is going to be if you're the house painter. So, on the subject of drawing, and these are things that are important, but I don't have enough time to yammer on about it, so I have a little handout that you can take and look if you want. So I did these sketches of Phil before tonight, and just tried to work out, I like to work on a 12 by 12 square, so I was just saying, how's it going to look? And I did this one, and I'm like, I don't know about that. So then I did this one, and the reason why I brought these tonight, you can see Phil has dark hair. Mostly dark. And, although his hair was longer here, this, he looks kind of like a blonde Phil, right? And this, just with a difference in value, it looks more like Phil, I think. Don't you think? This one? Yes. So, of course you want to get your color right, you want to get your line right, but value in just a simple little change, we have maybe Phil. So, and these are things you can do all beforehand. So, enough talking, let's move on. Now let me set you up. Okay, so we're going to go, after all this talking about staging and doing fancy poses, I'm just going to focus on the face and keep it sort of minimal. So I'm going to do this, which I was studying. You don't need to worry about here. Not too far, I don't want you to fall. Is you look at somebody and you immediately, you're talking about me, I look at Phil, his profile, and he has kind of a, now that I've posed you, do you mind showing everybody your profile? He has it's very straight here and here, and it's almost like a line, except the nose. And, okay, you can turn back, thank you. Now, there are three kinds of noses, basically. The aquiline nose, which is mine, retroussé, and the little pug nose, and then, actually four if you're a boxer, sort of mishmash, but a very straight nose. They all cast different shadows. So when your model comes into the room, look at, they may not be someone who you think is attractive, but there's something in it that should excite you. Okay, that's my colors. I use a lot of the landscape, you who paint here, these are the landscape greens, the grays, I don't use the blues so much, and just the regular, and then I mix my own concoction of flesh tones, which is very similar to John's. And, so, here we go. First thing you want to do is start with big brush. Big brush, big artist. Little brush, little artist. That's my phrase. Okay? I like to... Can you turn your head more? Yeah. A portrait, the entire thing, in a number 12 brush, which is like this. You'd really be doing something. Okay, so the reason, and we use a lot of puce here, which is for those who aren't painters, that's this. It actually means flea in French. We use a lot of that for the shadow sides. One reason why I don't usually start, Phil has a nice square head, that's one thing I like about that. That's a compliment. If you start with too much puce right out of the blocks, it kind of infects everything and you're not going to be able to, you kind of can't get rid of it. Okay, so there's the squareness going on. And the way where I'm looking, there's almost a line, and this, you look at somebody's face and you want to see the design. What makes his head, his face special? There's almost a straight line that goes right down. It's not exactly straight, but right down from the hair, the jaw, the neck. And And that's something that's nice about male portraits, is that they tend to be larger, broader, big jawbones, nice shapes. I find pretty women the hardest thing to paint because they're so soft. And anyway, okay. So now I go in with this puce, and it's kind of like you're making a poster. And squinting is your friend. So squint, 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 as John says, until your eyes hurt. And now I'm going to have to be quiet for a few minutes. Okay? Tell me when you need to. There's a lot of green in there with the red, and that's where we mix in, for those of you who are landscape painters, use a lot of the 6 and 7, number 6 and 7, and a light cadmium green, not quite so yellow as ours. Now, some people, especially children, have a really rosy cheeks. You can see across this area of the face, in most Caucasians, there's a lot more blood, coming to the surface. And, I mean, you don't want J.P. Morgan nose, but there's a lot more redness that does show up there. You can always knock it back if it's too much. Here's a little bit of oil. That's, I usually don't use turpentine. I'm starting to get into the lighter side colors. So what you have is kind of a roughing in of the broad shapes of the shadow, okay? And this is a little too wide yet, but you can see what's going on. So when you squint, looking at Phil, and then you stop squinting and look at your painting. Don't squint when you're looking at your painting. You should see kind of the simplification of all these shadow shapes on your painting, okay? And one reason why I said start with a big brush and don't get to a small brush too quickly is because what people tend to do is, I call this the math grip. Even if you're not doing the math grip in your head, you're kind of doing the math grip and getting too, right? You're getting in there too quickly. So even though, are you falling asleep? Good. Okay, you know, my dad was a great model. He'd fall asleep in position. And then I'd go, okay, doing your eyes. I'm still looking to replace that, if anybody who can do that, I really appreciate it. Okay, so, let me get some of this dark stuff going on. Now Phil does not have, on the top of his head, it's quite dark. It's not black, raven black, but I'm just going to put up a nice blotch of dark up there so we can kind of compare. All right, let's see where we're headed.
Is that just ivory black, Rebecca? That you're using?
With a little bit of alizarin.
Alizarin in it?
But yes, ivory. Now, sometimes it can help you in your drawing if you use, now, let me back up. In an adult head, generally, the irises are about, halfway, okay? If you have a toddler, the whole head proportion is going to be different. So, another thing to do is, you draw with your rag, as at here, and well, you draw with your rag, you draw with your finger, anything goes. Okay, so I'm going to put in a little bit of gray up here. Oh, what I was going to say about the irises is sometimes, just to get your placement, Phil's eyes are quite dark in this light. You can come in and put the irises. I don't like that because then you're starting to get into the and missing the larger global shape. Sometimes what happens too when you put in a tiny detail too soon is you get kind of married to it and then you don't want to get rid of it. So here we go. Put in some of this. Is it salt and pepper? Very nice. And it's going to give me kind of an idea of values, where we're headed. Now I am going to put in some background. Just one thing that's nice about paint is you can really mush. If you have a big brush and you're not getting too crazy about your details, keep it nice and loose. If anybody has any questions, ask away so you don't forget them. And this is kind of cutting in when you use the background, and at least that's what I call it. You cut into your, this is the negative space, and you're cutting into your drawing. So this is canvas that's, I stretch, I buy it in big rolls, and then buy these wood pieces, put them together, stretch, and it's lead primed. I guess that's why I'm a little crazy. But it does make for a beautiful surface on which to paint. So I'm kind of trying to lose some of these edges here, and while still keeping Phil's basic Philness. I'm going back and forth between some of these brushes. darker one, dark and light one, a little bit clean. Oops. Ah, see what I mean? That puce really can affect things. If you have a dirty brush and you don't want to, or you have time to clean it, you can stick it in your white. That will do a little bit of cleaning for you. I do have some what I call renegade colors, which aren't on the normal barn list. I find that Viridian, although it's very cool, sometimes with red deep can give you the value you're looking for. The whole time you're painting or drawing, I'm just going to say painting, but it's whatever your medium is, you are constantly going to be checking relationships. Phil's mouth is slightly a kilter to down on the left, and if you were to compare my mouth with his mouth, his goes over further. So you just constantly lining it up. Okay. Try to save a little space up here for the brightness. If you can squint again, and notice that the light is coming obviously from this side, but it's up high. And even though that nice little pinpoint of light on his nose is a lovely accent, the highest light is on his forehead. So just keep that in mind, that you want the light to cascade down, just as if you are a still life painter and the light is caressing from one side of your still life to the other. You want to capture that beautiful flow. And if you're a landscape painter, it's all about the light effect outside. I'm just compelled with faces. They're fascinating and they're ever-changing. The same person, the same face, can do all sorts of expressions. So right now I'm doing what's called half-toning. I'm smearing to make the transition softer. And I'm still not getting too crazy about little itty-bitty details. I think once you realize not to get crazy about details, it's quite freeing. So what did this thing that I was reading about, that one of Sargent's students wrote, said that he could work for days on the eyes, and then at the last minute plop the iris in like it was an egg dropping into a cup and set it perfectly. But that's pretty impressive. For me, anyway. You need a break? Sure. You want a break? You're doing a good job.
We're
Rebecca, do you have a particular brand of paint you like to use and paintbrushes?
Because of the recommendations from my great teacher there, John, he uses Gamblin, and so do I. I never buy student grade because you end up, I think, spending as much money because a tube of paint, I do have a tube of paint, is filler. It's got filler in it and it's got pigment. And the higher quality paints have more pigment, so you use less. And if you pick up the same color in two different brands and one's heavier, it's got more pigment. Old Holland is, I really love Old Holland as well, and that's a lot more expensive.
And how about your brushes?
These are workhorses. These are the, sorry about that random question, the Signet Robert Simmons. I also like, well, these are Old Holland sables. A couple of good sables are nice to have. And then these Isabey brushes. But pretty much it's these guys, these Robert Simmons. And if you take care of your brushes, I got an oil painting set from my grandmother when I was 7. Her paints, she kind of retired, and I still have one of her brushes that she used. And one thing I tell people is I usually don't wash them here because I'm too lazy. I'm very lazy. So I wrap them up, just leave the oil paint on it, stick them in the freezer. And I'm embarrassed to say that after a month, you can still clean them. Don't recommend it, but it can be done. But it certainly saves you. And if you're painting, like if tomorrow Phil was coming over and I was going to finish this, I wouldn't wash these brushes because they'd be having the same color on them anyway, and why waste time? And every time you wash your brushes, you know, they get worn down and such. So if you you don't need to wash them so much, then that's a good thing.
What kind of rag is that? Cotton?
If Claire leaves things on the floor too long, then they get taken. Yeah, I thought that's what you meant. This is cotton. Flannel, I think, is the best. I never use anything like rayon or polyester because it doesn't grasp. So you know, you have green in your background. You know, bring a little bit in here, and you kind of. You know, one thing that's nice about you doing all the shadows at once over the whole thing. I know I'm just focusing on the head, but if this were a still life and you had a pot and a zither and a this and a that and the other, you want your shadows over the whole thing, and then you're going to get a much more cohesive look. Especially men, but women too. In this area, you get more gray and green, and depending on the beard of the male model, that might. Nixon, for instance, you know, you could go in with a number 5, gray, right? But to have a little bit of the gray or green coming down the face is just fine. It also pushes the head, helps the head turn. And if this were natural light, north light coming in, and a silvery color, as the head turns in the light side, you'd put some gray as it starts to go away from the color, the high color area. It just helps it turn. And they're a little bit too cool for his gray in the hair, but it's nice just to get something value-wise, and that speeds up your process for those of you who don't paint with this kind of scale thing going on. Turn the form. And sometimes you get the shape, and then you lose the shape, and then you have to get it again. Phil has this interesting face. It's because his eyes are slightly uneven, as many of us all do have that, and he almost looks like he's questioning something or keenly. That's a possibility. Well, he usually is. That's true. He is a questioner. So you can see that I kind of had the shadow under the mouth, then I rid of the shadow under the mouth, and then I'm trying to put the shadow under the mouth back. And that's okay. You know, I think that, again, if you're not strangling your painting by getting too involved with the details too quickly, you're more willing to paint something out, and then you lose it, and then bring it back, and that's a good thing. It has a little bit of a, because of the light blue shirt, there is going to be reflected light coming up there, and the core on the chin area is going to be closer to me than the back of the neck. So the core is going to be here. The reflected light is here. And then there's a cast shadow from the head and jaw on the column of the neck here. So 1, 2, 3. So if you can get that, it's all in very close proximity. And, you know, close color. But if you can get those three, then you'll kind of identify what's going on with the neck and the juncture, the chin and the juncture with the neck. And that's a good thing. I have this thing about ears. I like them. And one of my teachers years ago in San Francisco told us that she could always tell a really good portrait painter, not so much from the faces, but from how they handled ears and hands. Because her theory was that if you didn't care too much about your product, you'd let the ears and the hands kind of go. And ears are not really that hard, but everybody's ears are different. Phil has a bit of a Vulcan thing going on with his ears. Yes, good long crossbar. And that is, you know, that's unique and cool. And now, here's some homework for y'all. Go home, go out tomorrow, and inevitably you'll see somebody, if it's a sunny day, especially children, especially those beloved dear little boys that have ears that go like this, okay? And right here, where it's very thin like a petal, you'll see the sun coming through it, and it is that color. You look. I'm going to wrap it up shortly, like in a few minutes. Can you hang on there? Young man? Okay. Good. So the top of the ear, although it doesn't really show so much tonight because Phil is, that ear over there is in the shadow, but if it were with light behind it, you'd really see how red it was. You know, the same thing happens when you are painting landscape, backlit, you're standing here, the sun's coming at you from here, and you can see through the leaves. It's the greenest green, right? Is that right, John? Okay, the green is green. So here we have, if you have the light transmuted through the skin, you see that really red. Now, on Phil, it seems to me that his neck, I'm going to wrap this up shortly, so don't get fidgety yet. His neck has a lot of yellow in it, but not yellow like a different complexion, just, we all have, you know, sometimes yellow here, yellow there. So, I'm just going to, not too much. This is another structural thing that's nice. You have the chin coming down, the jaw, and that nice little bit of tone right here. So it's turning under, and then bang! You hit the neck, and I always like that part. Part of the neck. Okay, so, thank you, Phil. Now a little bit like Julia Childs would put the meatloaf in and say, and now I have one that is completed. So, here's another one, Phil. A little bit more time on it. So, I hope you have takeaways, information that you can go home with, and if I can answer any questions. I do want to say, I almost forgot, oh my goodness, Laura Gray and I are going to be doing a self-portrait workshop, and Julie is a very big part of the show that we're doing at the barn next fall. So any of you who want to dabble away with portraiture, self-portraiture, it's going to be fun. So thank you all so much.
Like cannons.
Could have gotten another hour. She's a born man.
Well, I can see the thing on the website that she's having a thing. I It's in July.